It's Sherry Colurtis with At 45, the magazine for women 45 plus. Today, we are continuing on with our series, Women in Art, and how art has transformed women's lives. And it's been a fascinating series. I'm very happy today to have Paddy Meade with us, an artist from Vancouver and the Sunshine Coast. Welcome, Paddy.
Welcome. Thank you for having me here.
I'm so excited to have you. I just love your paintings. And particularly, I loved your seagulls. I mean, on the West Coast, that is very something we see every day, but you made it look so beautiful and really gave them personality. So I was really enjoying that.
Thank you. Thank you. I do enjoy wildlife and nature, and it comes across even in my paintings that lean more to abstraction.
So I noticed that you have a large variety of different types of painting, and I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about that. What kind of painter do you consider you to be?
The best term is probably very eclectic, and that is very much my personality, my past careers, and I think that just builds into your art. So I am fascinated by many types of art. I'm fairly new. I have been a full-time artist for about 5 years and had a long career before that with no art. Wanted to be an artist in high school, but went down different roads. So all of my eclectic careers and places I've lived influences my art. And I think it influences the fact that I'm drawn to many subjects and many media. So, you know, it could be watercolor or mixed media or a lot of acrylic, and more I'm starting to get into oil or oil and cold wax. I think it's the risk and the challenge of trying new media and new subjects. Even though I would be eclectic and it might be harder to see my style, every artist has their own mark making. Every artist has a style, even if you're eclectic.
I'm really interested in the cold wax. How do you use that in your work?
I've only done lately, this past year, started to explore. I mean, the pandemic allowed us all to try new things, but you actually mix oil and cold wax. It's not a caustic, it's not hot wax. And for my work, I had done a lot of abstraction where you're putting on layers. I also did nests and eggs and birds. I don't have any of those anymore. They went quick, but where I put on layers of wax and then I went back down through the layers or built up with oil. So it was a kind of a push-pull type of work. It is messy. So I have to, I kind of set up for doing that when I'm going to do it. But it's a media that lends itself to a lot of things. And I certainly haven't explored enough yet.
Well, it's very unique, I think. So how did you get into painting, Paddy?
Well, I'll try and do it short. When I was in high school, I wanted to be an artist. Got the portfolio, got accepted, was going to go that route. But I also didn't have a lot of money and didn't come from a lot of money. And I bought into, you can't be an artist, you should be poor. And I didn't want to be a graphic or a commercial artist. So I went a different way and went to university, totally different, had different careers, a lot of outdoor adventure programming. I was a guide, outdoor guide. Then I moved a lot of different things in several provinces and in senior and executive management for governments, including living north of 60, which a lot of Canadians don't get to do. So I lived and worked in Northwest Territories and then in the Yukon. I did some work in Nunavut. And all of that stayed with me. But I really, having kids, doing careers, I put my art aside, except for drawing something for my kids now and then. But when I went up north to the Northwest Territories and you'd go into these little communities, not a lot to do, no internet, you're not watching movies. So I took up drawing again. And then I was able to join the guild and got into pottery and then glassmaking, and eventually just said, I'm gonna paint. Took a risk, dove in, started to just on my own, and then met a couple of local artists I painted with, learned things from. So when I retired, I said, this is how I will find my enjoyment. I have many things to share from many experiences, lots of emotions dealing with the environment and Canada's wonderful nature and all of the wonderful people, especially when I lived up north, and the animals that I bring into my art now. So but again, it's my new career, once again, jumping off a cliff, taking a risk, and I love it. And I've done that my whole life, tried things that nobody said I could or should do. I just did it.
Oh, you sound fascinating. You are an explorer, it sounds like.
I think in many ways, first you have to always remember to explore yourself. And art sometimes, when you really let go, it's personal and it's surprising what comes out.
Yeah.
Half the time, I'm very pleased that whoever looks at my painting doesn't realize what really was in my soul at the moment.
So I'm really interested in the fact that you were working up north and way up north, I think, as far as you can go in Nunavut. Is that how you say it?
Nunavut, but I
Nunavut.
only worked a bit there. Most of my time was in the Northwest Territories and in the Yukon. But in both jobs, especially in the Northwest Territories, there's no roads in the Northwest Territories outside of Yellowknife, really. You fly in everywhere. So I would fly right up to Inuvik and right up to little communities on some of the Arctic islands.
My grandfather was also an explorer, and he actually ended up owning a bakery in Inuvik. Because I remember one time he'd come to visit us. He just arrived out of the blue, and tell us about all these adventures that he's been on. But the one time he came, they brought these deer wallets all beaded.
Oh, yes.
Oh, it's just...
I have one that's, I have my credit cards are in a little moose skin beaded thing. I wrote a friend of mine about 3 months ago saying, I've had this for 10 years and I no longer can have the moose smell. So I need a new one. Because I used to love up my bag and I'd get this little whiff and I think, oh yeah, I'm back in the bush.
Oh, it was amazing how it smelled. And you know what? I wish I knew what happened to that wallet. My mother, he brought my mother one and my two aunts who were just 3 and 6 years older than me. And that smell, that wild smell, it's funny. Sometimes, I'll go in someplace or something and it's that smoky kind of really musky scent. And it all comes from...
Takes you back. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would be often gifted by a community and often I would get moccasins. So I have, a collection and some I wore out, but I always had to put the moccasins in Ziplocs in the freezer for a while because I put them on my feet and my dogs would go crazy. I could never leave them around. I had golden retrievers at the time. It's like I couldn't walk. These dogs are at the moccasin. So I had to put them in the freezer for about 2 months just to calm it down. It would still smell, but nothing like fresh off the...
Oh, isn't that something?
No internet. A lot of times you go into a community, it's not like there's even a restaurant. You took cold food and you ended up sleeping in very unique places. You always had your little kit bag when you got on these little airplanes and questioned if they could really land in that spot of snow or ice or lake, but pulled it off. It really, I think it's unfortunate that most Canadians don't get to see north of 60 because it's wonderful. And 3 territories are very, very different. The communities are different in those territories. But grizzlies were in my backyard. I painted one of my favorite grizzlies and the Northern Lights and dealing with the darkness and the sunrise. And then, you're reading a book in your tent at 3 o'clock in the morning when it's summer. The harshness, I think. And it's not just north of 60. There's lots of Canada that people need to really touch to understand us as Canadians.
Yes. I think that's true. And so what kind of work did you do, if you don't mind me asking?
Through my life, it's been very eclectic, but what took me in the last few years was dealing in the area of health and social services. So I would work
Ah,
for governments in a senior position, um, everything from, medevacs and getting doctors and nurses and social workers and dealing with community issues and interface with the Indigenous and First Nation communities, uh, just ensuring that there was delivery and issues, managing budgets and dealing with all the issues of remote health and social service delivery.
which is it is just a huge thing, here we are in the 21st century, and there's still communities like that that don't have running water or safe water to
Or,
drink.
or that, your medical is a nurse, and you're flown out for what we would take as, you go to a specialist, right? Well, it's a very different management of it. So a lot of prevention and working with communities around healthy issues.
Yes. And you mentioned that it's a hard, like the weather and that is very harsh, and it's true. I just come from the prairies, and you'd have a storm or a blizzard come up in a matter of 20 minutes. So there's really unique challenges to be trying to move about in the
There
north.
is, and in my art, those are the things you capture. I mean, you're from the prairies, the storms coming in over Saskatchewan fields, there's nothing more gorgeous. I mean, and talk about whether it's abstraction or realism, it's all right there. It's gorgeous.
Yes.
I worry that I'll run out of time before I can paint everything I want to paint.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. How do you decide what you're going to paint? Is it a feeling, or do you just
Well,
get
I
something
take
in
a
your
lot
mind?
of photographs and I do a lot of sketching, and some may or may not ever become a painting. Right now, I mean, I'm fascinated by ravens and crows, and not only the ravens themselves, but all of the history and mythology that goes first, certainly with Indigenous populations, very important,
Yes.
but it goes back to Romans and Greek mythology, and certainly with Celtic, Irish, etc. So I find that fascinating. So I've started a series, probably take me 2 years to finish because they're all big paintings, about, well, here's one that I just
Oh,
started.
yes.
So it's just the very beginning, but trying to use them, but I'm using it with a different metaphor, which has to do with, get this, laundry. So we'll see how it works. I know. Why did that happen? I don't know. It just happened.
But what I like, because I noticed you had one painting in the ones that I was in your portfolio, and ravens and crows, and that you're thinking dark, but you actually have a very colorful and light perspective that you bring to them. I thought it
Well,
was very
they're
interesting.
fun. They're fun to watch. I mean, they're, sometimes I hide them, but they're fun.
So what is the most rewarding thing, about your art? How does it make you feel?
I think I had a very challenging life of multiple careers and balanced family and marriage and all of that. On top of that, live different places. You don't give yourself permission for downtime, nor did my life. So the downtime, I always had to fill it. And I think when I first started art, it was like, oh, you're going to retire. I'm only semi-retired because I still do contract work in a non-art world. But I think I panicked and I started to approach art like, oh, I gotta have so many paintings done a week or a day or something, right? And the most rewarding was, no, you don't. This is about learning. This is about learning and sharing the same way you used to in different careers. But it's also about, you can't paint well if you're not in touch with your soul and you're not putting emotion in it. Anybody can technically paint, might have very nice technical painting, but there's no emotion. So the most rewarding for me, I think, was acknowledging the me time is okay. And the me time for me is doing my art, because a lot of it is play. You're experimenting, especially when you start a painting, you're playing. And isn't it nice at my age to be able to play and still feel like I'm offering things and contributing?
Oh, I so identify with that. And I think many women do. One of the things that I've loved about the aging process is that you do start to become selfish, if you want to say, to giving yourself permission to do things that don't have direct output, in our busy careers and our life. We're often trying to meet schedules and deadlines, and there's a lot of things to do. But I've appreciated, as I've grown older, that I've learned how to say that's not the most important thing, and explore who I am as a person.
Exactly. I think some of us are of the age where, I think it was a cigarette commercial. You can have it all, baby. Well, actually, you can, but you're not going to be healthy.
Yeah.
So I think the
Yes.
biggest message that women of our age can say to younger women is selfish is actually good. It's not a bad term, and do it earlier. Don't wait as long as we did.
Oh, that's so
Find
true.
that balance. Find that balance. It doesn't mean you can't have a very aggressive career or whatever your passion is. But man, if you're not emotionally healthy, you're not going to do anything well.
Yeah. Yes, no. And if you haven't made health your priority, I'm struggling with that now personally myself, is, your health was the last thing that
Yeah.
you were focused on, and it catches up with you eventually, for sure.
I think the other thing in my art, and it kind of is about health, but it's more about mental health, is the one thing I learned early in my paintings is if a painting isn't working, it's not like a paper I have to have done if I'm in school, or a report for a boss, or whatever it is. Stop. Just put it aside. You can come back to it. You don't have to finish a painting. I mean, I have
Right.
5 to go right now, and I'm quite happy. And it's better for them and better for me. I'm not futz that I don't have that done. Sometimes there's a deadline about a show, but I don't sweat it.
Yes, that is very good perspective, because it's true. Again, through life, we're trying to cross things off our list. The end is always a finite point, but I can see exactly what you mean, because you don't have to finish a painting. In fact, if it doesn't feel right, you can just never go back to it again.
Or you just leave it for some time, but if you come in and you're not quite there, sometimes I just throw a little paint or do a little drawing. Yeah, that's nothing. That's a throwaway board. But that got it out. Whatever I had to get out of, whatever the lump in my chest was, I had to get out, and then I can go paint.
Right. So painting is a very emotional
Yes.
journey for you.
Yeah. Often if I've done a full day of painting, the first thing that happens when I know I've really put it out there is I'm hungry. So, and it has nothing to do with hunger. It's that I emptied out, right? Isn't that good? And those are always better. Those are always better paintings when I feel like, wow, I put it out there. I guess it's like a musician or an artist, or, or a sports athlete or something, don't leave anything on the court.
Absolutely.
So it's a good way to look at life. And, in many ways, I've had absolutely wonderful adventures and wonderful opportunities and jobs that I think, whoever thought you could do that? And here you are. But it's because I think because I was a risk taker, and being able to get into art as a, still kind of emerging artist, and put your pictures out for people to see, that's risk taking. And that's fun. That's where you grow.
Yes, absolutely. That is true. Trying, and that's the wonderful thing I think about aging too, because don't you find we have less preconceived notions about what we can and can't do?
Yeah, every now and then, because we all go through it, I'll think, oh, if I was going to be an artist, these people have 30, 40 years on me, right? I'll never be there. And I go, so what?
Yeah.
You in your other jobs, you did things in a few years that people took 10, 20 years to get to. And what does it matter? That permission of doesn't matter. As long as I feel like I'm learning and I'm trying new things and I'm still pushing the edge. If I ever get to the art where I'm painting the same stuff all the time, that won't be satisfying for me. It may be for other artists, and that's fine, that they have one subject and they kind of do it for a run. But you have to know your personality, and that's not me. And that's the thing about the aging piece, or the maturity, I guess, piece is I don't have to have that kind of pressure.
Yeah. So is there a particular book that sort of changed the way you've thought about life?
Remember I said I was eclectic early to start? We'd be here a long time if I went through that list, because I think I'm excited when I read something, And I just read On Fire by Naomi Klein. And I don't always agree with everything in her writings. I think she's well researched. There's stuff in the book I thought, oh, come on. But I really took away the idea of this is no longer about climate change. This is about society and social change. I mean, even Greta Thunberg, young kid, amazing. Yes. So the awakening for me is it's no longer about one piece. And I thought, well, so how do I influence that in my art? That's a nice concept to think about. I mean, I paint seagulls. How does that affect climate change? Well, if society doesn't start learning from how the birds work together, ravens work together, maybe that's the only way we're going to learn how to solve these bigger issues.
Yes. Yeah. And it is true. I mean, as time is going by, and even with COVID and that, it's easier to see how we need to be integrated to that whole universe mentality, because if we don't learn to exist within that and be able to manage it, the world's going to end. And I mean, I always find it fascinating that these people with money are exploring going to Mars and all this, when if they put that money to dealing with some of the realities and the problems here on Earth, think where we'd be.
Absolutely. And I actually think that art, whether it's visual art like I'm doing, or music or theater or poetry or writing, will have a significant role in that kind of bring the world together. And also because while you're doing that, and while we're facing all of these horrific things, fires and war issues and immigration and whatever it is, fooding and housing and homeless, there's also a need for healing and calm. And so art can do two things. You can bring a message, but you also can people just need to be able to take a breath. And looking at a picture, hearing music lets you take that breath while we move to the next step. So I really think art collectively needs to step up and say, we got a role here in many ways. It's not just about, I did a picture early in the pandemic, kind of smoke and horror. I was on the phone to a friend in New York, and they were telling me about the morgue trucks, right? Well, I did a painting. It was only a little 12 by 12 right away, like that afternoon. Just because I felt like, well, people have to see masks and robes and, morgue stuff. That's important. that kind of graphic in your face painting, but also the healing of we can all come together and it's going to be okay, and take a breath.
Yes. Very, very, very true. Is there a particular piece of learning that you've garnered over your career, whether it's art or in your work, that sort of has stood the test of time, that really is meaningful?
Well, I think as a female, I often was working only with men. I had only brothers. I think one of the things is that women have to help each other better. We have to mentor, we have to reach out, we have to support, whether it's artists helping other artists, or in my other work jobs, reaching out and mentoring and paying it forward. Not just to women, because we have a lot to offer, but in particular, just remembering that the sisterhood should be, has a duty. You gain from other women, now pay forward. I think that's important. And the other one for me is, the little kids book, it's probably not even in print anymore. The little trains going up the hill. I think I can, I think I
Oh,
can.
yes, yes.
That's very important. When I think I can't, I have to tell myself, like the little train, I think I can, I think I can. And who says you can't? Don't listen to those voices, listen to your own. That was the message I had from, well, I had several messages from an old high school swimming coach who didn't even know she was giving me messages, I'm sure. But it was like, just because people say you can't doesn't mean you can't. Do it.
Yes, and that is why I started at 45. To be honest, I had been in a male-dominated industry from when I first started my career, and I realized that women bring a certain perspective to things that that men don't or can't or won't. I'm not quite sure what, but it was so important that I tapped into that. And
Yeah.
then as I started to tap into that, I realized that women, just like you're saying about, I think I can, I think I can. Women are able to inspire each other by seeing and sharing. If I think I can't do something and I see a woman or a story about a woman who's done it, it's meaningful. It gives me inspiration. It gives me hope that I can try things that I've been telling myself, well, it's too late to try that. And it's been there was one woman in particular early on in my interviews, and I think now she's in her 80s, and she was learning to speak French, and she had started at 68 or something like that, and she had said, when she started, a lot of people said, well, you can't learn French at this age. And she said, look at there, I've been speaking French now for almost 20 years. So it's never too late to start something. And that's the power of the sisterhood for sure. I know I've been inspired by, the many women that I've had the pleasure of talking to. So it is.
I think those women who have reached those magical years, whether it's 25, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, doesn't matter what it is. But when somebody says, well, it's too late now. If somebody had said to me a few years ago, it's too late to be an artist, it would have probably just encouraged me to say, who told you I can't do this? At the same time, it's watching other women who have, you're going to be, so I could start my art, or I could say, well, you're going to be 70 next year. Why would you try that? Well, I'm going to be 70 anyway, so why wouldn't I try it?
Exactly. Yes, such a great attitude. And that's, again, what I found exciting about aging, because in my younger years, I was so focused on, like I said, accomplishing, and you close yourself off to all the opportunities.
Yeah,
And now you get to a certain age and you think, I can do anything I bloody well want to. And it's
absolutely.
so exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I may not take up, ballet at the bar, but I can learn to dance if I want. Because I don't think the leg will
Absolutely.
go up as the bar anymore.
Yeah, well, sometimes the physical challenges are there, we can't ignore them for
Physically,
sure.
the only thing that's going to maybe limit you. You just figure a way around that, right?
Yes. Well, you have lived an amazing life. Oh my
I've
goodness.
had fun. I've had great opportunities. And the other thing is, when the doors opened, I just said, go for it.
Well, it's not every woman who can say that that's how they've approached life. And so well
Yeah.
done. So your paintings are available through romegallery.com. And how can people get in touch with you directly?
The best way is through my website or on Instagram. It's just at pmeade52.
Okay, great. And we'll be
Or
sure.
through Rome Gallery. On Rome Gallery, there's a listing under the artist, and there's the rest of my contacts too.
Okay, so we'll also be putting that in the story and on the video. So, so thank you again for a wonderful time. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, thank you.